turn it on. again. With the lyrical, so cool sound again. With the rhythm, with the lyrical sound again. With the lyrical cool sound again. With the lyrical, so cool sound again. With the rhythm, with the lyrical sound again. With the lyrical.
Right on Sports is a program that teaches middle school kids how to write about sports as a way to inspire them to write. Right on Sports is theme-based education. It's about critical thinking, it's about interviewing, it's about building self-confidence.
Our goal is ostensibly to help students improve their writing skills by writing about a topic of interest. And so in this case, sports. We define sports really broadly so that it makes it really accessible for students to write about something that they want to learn more about and care about.
It's an incredibly important program. It gets these kids excited about journalism, and it's really cool that they can go and meet these athletes firsthand. I mean, that's an opportunity that not a lot of people have.
We have a student-teacher ratio of 4-to-1, which means that in this 2-week program, a child is getting a really amazing personal attention about what they're thinking, about what they're writing, about how to write.
It's so rewarding to come back and help these kids. I can see these kids are so willing to learn. I mean, they're here in the middle of the summer writing. Like, that's just the coolest thing to me.
It's the middle of the summer, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the buses are ready to take the students home. And the students are saying, no, give me 2 more minutes. Give me 2, I gotta get this last sentence down. I gotta finish this story. So to me, that speaks volumes about how engaged they are when they're here. You can't ask for more than that.
I really like to write. You know, I'm planning on being a poet one day, and so writing is like really essential to me. So writing and planning on our future stories is the most important part of my day.
Taking the tools from this program as they make career choices, as they make life choices.
You can do anything you want as long as you put your mind and your heart to it.
Hi, my name is Eric Jacobson. I'm the program director for Right on Sports, and welcome to the 3rd episode of the 2021 Speaker Series. The Speaker Series is really designed to replicate an essential part of the Right on Sports experience, where journalists come in, athletes come in, and students get the chance to do some background reading, prep some questions, and then interview the athletes and the journalists themselves. We can't do it face-to-face this year because of the pandemic, so the Speaker Series is intended to give students an opportunity to have that kind of interaction. So I'm going to be joined by 2 guests today, and I'm going to ask them some questions, but then we're going to bring on some students who are currently in Right on Sports programs to ask their own questions based on the stories that they're working on. So the 2 guests that we have today, the first is Cliff Floyd, former Major League Baseball player, World Series champ, and currently a baseball analyst, and Greg Amsinger from the Major League Baseball Network, who also has done play-by-play and broadcast any number of sports. So I'd like to thank both of them for coming on today, making time for us. We're going to start with Cliff, and I've got some baseball questions because we're in the middle of baseball season. So thanks for joining us today, Cliff. Thanks for making time.
No doubt. Thanks for having me.
So my first question for you is that, it used to be that in the Hall of Fame, when a player got inducted, that they could choose their own hats, right? Now they don't get to choose their own hats. You played for 7 different teams. If you were going to be enshrined in the Hall, what hat would you wear?
It's a great question. Started my career in Montreal, and it was a great city, a great organization. But I think when you win something special like a World Series, which when I got traded to the Florida Marlins in '97, it was something that I cherished. It was a team that we had one heartbeat, and I played there just as long as I did in Montreal. I think it means a lot to me, and it would mean a lot to probably my family that I went in if I was going in as a Florida Marlin.
All right. As a former Expo, you still have hopes for them to get a team back in Montreal? What's the fan base like there?
It's incredible. I think, when you look at logistically, where the stadium is located outside the city, even though they have the underground railroad system and all that stuff, underground trains that go from the city to to the outskirts of Quebec over there in Canada. To me, downtown was the ideal spot, and the mayor there has spoke highly about getting a team back. When you look at what was lost, and even with how hockey is so big there,
Hmm.
um, they moved they moved the stadium literally 5 blocks, and they've been selling out for years now. Now look, I think if you move the stadium, downtown where you had the businessmen and women and everybody, there was easy access. You will sell out that stadium in a heartbeat every single night. So I think they're definitely hoping to get a team back there, and if they did, it would definitely thrive.
I know that you played for the Ottawa Lynx, right? As coming up through
Yeah,
the system. I saw a minor league game in Ottawa once when I was in Ottawa because I love seeing different minor league parks. Any memories of Ottawa, playing in Ottawa?
it was great. I mean, other than it was just AAA, and it's not the big league. So, I think it was a stepping stone. It was a reality check. A lot of what Ottawa was. It was a new ballpark where, if I remember correctly, city was great. Um, ballpark was one of the, when you look back at the times, was one of the newest ones. And we had a nice big locker room, but I don't think anybody was hoping to make that home for a long time. So
Right.
we enjoyed it for the time being, to get out of there, and that was it.
All right. So, because you played in different cities over the course of your career, do fans from different cities think of you as a different player? Like, does fans in each city have a particular image of Cliff Floyd?
Absolutely. I think every city you play in is unique in its own way, and um, I've always, I cut to the chase, man. If you playing great in a certain city, that image is going to be pretty darn high. And if you're not, you're gonna get, you know, you're gonna get sort of what the game is, or what we've seen around the game for a long time. It might not be boos, but if the boos are there, they want you to do well so they can cheer for you. So I think there's been some different images from different cities I've played in. But one thing I've always left a mark with wherever I've been is I play hard. That's the least I could do. That's what my dad taught me. Play as hard as you can, leave it on the field. And when you're done with the game, trash it and get ready for the next one.
So when you see people coming up to you in the airport, you can tell what it's going to be based on the hat that they're wearing, what kind of interaction it's going to be.
Absolutely. most people
Yeah.
most people just look at me, right? They like, I think that's him, and if you play well, they know it's me, right? So, in New York, I had a really good image, even though I was hurt a little bit. I always believe New York understood me and sort of appreciated me, maybe a little bit more than most cities, but that's not taking anything away from every city I played in. Every experience was different. Um, some really good, some good, and some just okay. And that's sort of what our game is. You're gonna fail consistently, but it's what you do when you are going out there and doing well is what counts. So I always say, whatever you do wrong, make it productive and keep it moving.
Right. I think it's really important that you brought up the idea of failing consistently, right? So if you're a hitter, right, 3 times out of 10 is considered good, right? So that means 7 times out of 10 you're not doing something, right? That's just part of the game. And so we were talking to the students this week that that's true about a lot of different things, right? So as a writer, when you're trying to get information or you're trying to write a story, every story you write is not going to be good, right? And it's not
No,
always going to be easy to get the information that you need. There's failure is built into anything that we do.
you learn so much by that. You're right, and you're gonna fail 400 times in our sport a year. It's just, you can book it. You're gonna make 400 outs. If you get 600 opportunities, which is a really good year, 150 plus games played as an everyday player, you're gonna fail 400 times of those 600. And getting 200 hits, you go into the Hall of Fame. So think about that, right? So it's one of those things where in anything you do, writing, playing sports, whatever you do, banking, whatever, you gotta slow everything down. I mean, that's just bottom line what you do. You slow it down, and you get your mind fully involved in what you're trying to do consistently every day. It has to be fully involved and trick it and say, hey, I just need 3 hours of you today because it might not be a good day for you. Then tomorrow you
Right.
might get 5 or 6 out of it. But in those
Right.
3 productive hours of that day, it has to be devoted to being great. And you don't accept anything less than that. And once it's done, I guess the fulfillment of that is you feel better going into the next day knowing that you crushed it for 3 hours, even though it wasn't your best day, because tomorrow you need a good six, and that in
Right.
itself just sort of for me helped deal with the failures, deal with the adversity, trials and tribulations, the outside world, because that's more, people forget that when you're focused on one thing, the outside world is waiting for you to get done to apply itself back to you. So
Right.
it's a lot with that.
So I have a question from one of the students who's currently in their Carney Right on Sports, Bilal, and they have a really specific question about your job, right, when you were a baseball player, which is what size bat did you use and why?
Another thing that varied. Big guy myself, 6'4", 200 pounds. I really like to pull the baseball. Wasn't good. I always say perfect what you're good at and work on what you're not. So I was a really good pull hitter. And I got on the plate and I perfected that, in my opinion, to the best of my ability. So with that said, I used a 34 and a half bat because I had long arms and I didn't like the 35 inch. It was too long for me, but I did try it. So it was a 35 and a half, 32-ounce bat that varied from a big barrel to a skinny barrel, depending on how good I felt with my hands that particular day or week. If I was doing well with a big barrel bat, guess what? I used it consistently. And then when I felt like it was a little too heavy and I wasn't getting the bat head through the zone, I would switch to a skinnier bat. So it's all feel, and I apply that. I tell my son this all the time. It's all feel. You have to feel what you're doing and how you're going about it to be successful. Is nobody else can help you in that aspect of whatever you're doing at that particular time, job wise, school wise. It's feel, and you got to be willing to make adjustments on the fly.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into Greg. I'd like to invite Greg on. We have a question from Ethan in Kearney, and he wants to know, like, when did you begin in your career as a broadcaster?
Well, Eric, good to see you. Thanks for doing this. Cliff, loved everything you said, and I also love working with Cliff Floyd every day. It's so much fun at MLB Network. When I started my career as a broadcaster, it really began as a kid. I remember, I was a big bone kid, wasn't athletic at the age of like 3, like Cliff Floyd was. So I wanted to be a writer for Sports Illustrated. That was like my dream. So when I was, 7, 8 years old, I would write fake Sports Illustrated articles about my favorite thing going on in baseball at the time. I loved to memorize all the lineups. I didn't have access to all the games like kids have today. So when there was a game of the week, I couldn't wait to watch it and collected baseball cards, looked at the data on the back. With a bunch of dice, I created my own baseball card baseball game where I kept stats. So I made up outcomes with I'm very cerebral kid, I guess is a good way to say it. But I always wanted to do this. I pretended I was a DJ and would record music and do my own countdown, like the old Casey Kasem Top 40 stuff. And then as I got older, it's something that I wanted to pursue. I had a great teacher, a guy by the name of Dr. McKitty, who told me this is something I could do. Found a school that had a great radio station in the town that I grew up in. Went to that college, knew that I wanted to venture off into television. They really didn't have the resources there. So I kind of started a television program at my college and did 2 TV shows a week. It snowballed. It helped me get a job in local television and then to network television. And it ended up being an MLB Network now. And I've been there. This is my 13th season. So it's something that I've always wanted to do.
So I think the parallel to sports, Greg, is that you don't wait for it to come to you, right? Like, a sports career or beating a team is not going to come to you. You have to go out there and make it happen.
Totally. And there are some people that have such incredible talent that they can sit around and wait to make a decision and have a career in an industry. But in my opinion, and Cliff, you could probably speak to this, the most successful, and we've met through our lives so many successful people in so many different industries, the people that are the most passionate about what they do are for some reason the ones that are making the most money, the ones that have the highest ratings. They're the ones that are doing it at the highest level. And passion really is everything because at the end of the day, I always had this thought in the back of my mind: there's someone trying to get better at broadcasting than me right now. There's always someone working at it. If I'm sitting around not doing anything, so that was always what was motivating me to be better.
Mhm.
Yeah, work
Yeah,
ethic. I think for me, like Greg has talked about, is everything. And you knew um, who worked the hardest. If you paid attention to detail, you knew who was involved a little bit more than you. You knew who was going to take that extra swing, that extra ground ball, that extra fly ball. And you know, if you didn't work hard, guess what? I mean, you had to accept the outcome. I think that's just bottom line. I've seen so many people that were better than me. Just my eyes told me that, saw it. Um, but I knew I outworked them. Now, look, injury is going to derail you. A lot of things can derail you, but I think at the end of the day, like Greg said, if you're working hard and understand that somebody is always, coming and coming fast behind you to take your job, you have to be willing to put in that extra work to make sure that nobody ever, steps between you and what you believe you can accomplish.
yeah, we often talk about that with students with the writing, that like pick a story to write about that you care about, right? That you have passion for. Because if you write a story that you don't care about, your readers can tell, right? That you
Mhm.
don't care about that story. It's going to come out in your writing, right? And you're not going to be done with your first draft, right? Like it takes
Right.
work. It has to be a second draft, third draft, fourth draft, right? It's the people that really keep sticking with it to refine it that really bring that story to life. So everything's work, right? You have to be passionate, but you have to put the work in.
And
So
there's
Yeah, you
something
do.
great about that. Yeah, there's something great about that, Eric. When you really love all of the drafts, and it's almost like your baby, and it's like an emotional connection to your work. That's when you know you're doing something you should be doing. When you
yeah,
really can't wait to let your parents read it or read it for your brothers. Like that's the kind
right,
of stuff that's when you start to know that it's snowballing in the right way.
right. So I want to talk about baseball now, right? Because we're in the midst of baseball season. We just had the All-Star game. So there's a lot of young talent out there people are excited about. Before the broadcast, we were talking about Shohei Ohtani, Tatis, Vlad Guerrero Jr. All these are really, really exciting names. Are there some other players that we should keep our eye on that maybe aren't getting as much attention right now, maybe a little bit below the radar, but you think are part of this next generation of stars that people should be thinking about?
You know what? How about this? I'll tee up a name, and Cliff, you tell me if I'm onto it. I think a guy that's overlooked that could impact this season, maybe more than all of the players that Eric just mentioned, Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros.
He's big. He's strong. Um, I think the one thing I love about him is he's short and compact, and that's very hard to do as a big guy. Greg, we watch these
Mm-hmm.
guys consistently every single night, and when you watch Jordan, it's like, what's off? And it might be one little thing you watch, and you like, if he fixes that, he takes him on his back, and they can ride him into the sunset. That's just how good he is. Um, his eye hand coordination. I'm just watching him. When you watch him, you turn the tube and he's hitting on our network, and you're thinking, "Gosh, if I could just kept it a little bit short like that." And the ball flies. And now, Greg, you and I both know as we play golf, the easier do we swing, the further the ball goes. And
And
his swing is
balance.
just so beautiful. Yeah,
He's got balance. It's incredible balance. I think he's not getting enough attention. I really don't think so. This player, to me, Eric, is a guy that I think could really impact things. We're getting closer to the trade deadline. I think we're 9 days away, something like that. Byron Buxton might get traded. And Byron Buxton, before he was injured, Cliff, wasn't just the best center fielder in baseball. he was the best player in the sport. So if the Twins trade Byron Buxton, say he goes to a team like the Yankees,
Right.
I'm telling you, the world will actually understand how talented this guy is.
Yeah, and I think the one thing with Byron is, and unfortunately, I can speak to it because I was hurt a lot. Right, he's been derailed consistently by just injuries that you're thinking, gosh, if he could hit by pitch, well, it's not his fault. Run into the wall, well, it's not his fault. He's playing
Mm-hmm.
hard. The play, the adjustments, and we talked about this earlier to all the kids, you have to adjust on the fly. You have to be willing to say, look, this don't work. So we can look at Byron Buxton's stances for 2 years in a row. Guaranteed we'll see 5 or 6 different subtle changes to his approach is hitting that's made him figure out it clicked. Now it could be batting practice. It could be Greg, you throwing it to him in the off season. He just coming over to the house and you saying, let's just go in the backyard and work on something. It could be anything, but when you as talented as Byron is, the
Oh,
minute
yeah.
that it clicks, it's all over. And it's finally clicked. It's just unfortunate we don't get the pleasure of watching him like we should because he's sitting on the IL because of just these little silly injuries that are, keeping us from enjoying, how great it can be. But Greg, I'm gonna flip this and give you a guy that you've been talking about for a long time in DC,
Mm-hmm.
Juan Soto.
Oh, my
And when we
goodness. Yeah.
talk about Juan Soto, he did something at the All-Star game nobody's done in the history of watching the home run derby. He hit off a left-handed pitcher as a left-handed hitter. Now I can speak to that a little bit, but I just want you to speak to how special you think he's gonna be because you said something like
uh,
future Hall of Famer.
Yes, I think he's already the best left-handed hitter in baseball. I mean, I don't know how you can argue with that. Freddie Freeman's a terrific player, but even Freddie Freeman would tip his cap to Juan Soto right now. He's such a special talent. To watch guys for as long as we watched him on MLB Network, and then the guys that stand out, I haven't seen any hitter stay in their legs, almost as if he's sitting in a chair like Juan Soto does since Jeff Bagwell was doing that with the Houston Astros in his Hall of Fame career. He's such a special talent. It's as if you mixed Jeff Bagwell and Tony Gwynn. That's what
Mm.
I would say is the comparison for Juan Soto. I mean, that's two Hall of Famers who did things completely differently. Tony Gwynn was not up there to try to hit 40 home runs. Never struck out, hit for average guy. And I think Juan Soto's got that kind of a ceiling of all of the players, and we've heard our analysts talk about the group that's dominating baseball right now, the Otani, the Vlad Guerrero Jr. of the Blue Jays, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna Jr. with the Atlanta Braves. Of all of them, the player that if you had to tell me who will still be a star player at the age of 35, of those guys, you got to pick one who will still be a star. My money's on Juan Soto. I just don't think I think he's got a slump-proof approach. His hand-eye is ridiculous, and he just enjoys the game at a different level. He's not going to have to play shortstop or center field, so his body's not going to take the wear and tear.
Right.
He's not a stolen base guy, so I think he's here for the long haul, and he's one of the supreme players in the sport.
I think this is a good moment to segue to bring our first student on, Franklin from Right on Sports. Franklin, I think you have a question that's related to this evaluation of players. Thanks for joining us today,
Yeah,
Franklin.
my
Good to see you again.
Yep. Hello. So my question is about analytics. How do you think it's affecting the evaluation of young players and just players in general in baseball in terms of value and like the draft trade value?
It's a great
I think it's a great
question.
question.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead. You go first.
Well, you know what, Greg, you see it consistently. As a former player, I will speak to maybe too much information for certain players. For me, I'll speak to me being an ex-player. We didn't have analytics to this degree. Can you give me too much information that's going to allow me to go up there and think myself out of a good game? Absolutely. Can you give me something from an analytical standpoint that's going to help me throughout this game? Absolutely. So I think you have to weigh and sort of implement certain things for your game and for you writing. It's going to help you be great. It's going to help you Keep it simple. Maybe that's one or two things from an analytical standpoint that's going to help you thrive and be outstanding. Now, when you look at the game today, it's a big part of it. Do I think it's a bit much? Absolutely. Um, I don't know if it ever goes back. As an analyst, I have to adapt, but I think some players, it hurts more than help.
Yeah, Cliff,
Greg,
I think, yeah, let me weigh in real quick. I think analytics were used to evaluate individual players, and it really helped a lot of organizations, and it still does to this day. But that was supposed to remain behind the curtain. It wasn't supposed to be as mainstream as it is now. And unfortunately, you have a lot of players who know how they're individually evaluated analytically. The problem with that is they're up there thinking about that while they're playing a team sport. And the reason they're doing that, frankly, is because they know how they're evaluated analytically is how it determines how they get paid. So Zach Wheeler, for example, who's become a great pitcher, was a 500 pitcher in terms of the same amount of wins, same amount of losses when he was with the New York Mets. His ERA was lofty, over 4 for his career, but he was highly coveted when he became a free agent pitcher because his spin rate was ridiculous and his velocity was high. It wasn't helping him win games when he was a New York Met, but the Philadelphia Phillies and other organizations that were interested in him saw the potential of his individual analytical evaluation, and therefore he became highly coveted. When you're thinking about your individual analysis while you're playing a team sport, I don't know if that helps you become a winning player. And sometimes baseball looks to me like we're watching a bunch of players play for themselves for 8 innings. If the score's close at the end of 8 innings, then they play baseball. Then they try to get a guy over to second base, and then they'll try to hit a fly ball or a ground ball to second to get the guy home to tie the game. Unfortunately, we don't start playing baseball unless that's the case. So I think it was information that was supposed to be behind the curtain. The players weren't supposed to know all of what they know today, and we need to get back to playing winning baseball because at the end of the day, frankly, it is a team sport.
Thanks for that question, Franklin. The next student is going to come on and ask you a question, and you can either use analytics or you can use your old-fashioned eyeball method to answer this question. So, Evan, I'd like to invite you on to ask your question.
Who do you think is going to win the AL East and the NL East?
Well,
Cliff,
I think
go ahead, bud.
AL East, Evan, Boston is playing extremely well. I don't think we saw this coming. They have a guy in Chris Sale, who I think you know, that's coming back at some point. It's going to be a huge boost for them because we talk about a July 31st deadline, trade deadline, where you might not have to acquire anybody because you're getting this guy back who literally the other day was unhittable in his rehab start down in Double-A. Felt good, looked good, and all those things. So I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox because they're playing the best ball, and I don't think anybody else in that division is going to catch them. And on the flip in NL East, I have some concerns about Jacob deGrom. I do, in the Mets. They're in first place right now. I don't think anybody else in that division can catch them, even when you talk about the defending champs and Atlanta Braves. I don't think they have enough. We saw Touki Toussaint last night pitch a great game for them, but every game has to be great. I think the Mets have some leeway. I think they have to get Jacob back, but I still believe the Mets win that NL East as well.
Yeah, Greg, your thoughts?
I agree with you on the Boston Red Sox. Chris Sale coming back is the number one player coming off the IL that we have to watch. If he comes close to what he used to be, not only will they win the AL East, they're going to represent the American League in the World Series. That's how important he is to the Red Sox. I think the Philadelphia Phillies are the team in the NL East. I just like the core group of position players they have. I know they lost an Aaron Nola game yesterday, but Wheeler has emerged into a frontline starter. The bullpen they tinkered with, they're going to continue to tinker with it. They're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. They're going to add pieces to that pen. And I think that the Mets, they're just not hitting consistently up and down that lineup. And I believe in the track record of Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto and Rhys Hoskins and Andrew McCutchen. I mean, those guys have been around the game for a while. Gene Segura, Odubel Herrera. These are not kids. So I think it's a marathon. It's going to weigh on the Mets, and you're going to see the Phillies edge them out at the end.
All right. Thanks for the question, Evan. We'll be able to check in later in the fall and see how Greg and Cliff's predictions worked out. I'd like to shift gears a little bit to talk about baseball history as opposed to baseball now. Any favorite players growing up as a kid? Who did you look up to?
Who's yours?
Harold Baines. I grew up in Chicago, so I had the luxury of two teams, Chicago Cubs and the White Sox. The one thing about the White Sox was they play night games, and the Cubs, if you look at Wrigley Field back in the day, been that it was summer when baseball was being played. The Cubs didn't have lights, so as a kid, I was outside and I had to be in by 8 o'clock. My dad rules. So by watching the game at 2:20 or 1:10 because we had the floor model TV with WGN and TBS as the only two channels. I had to watch the White Sox at night, and I tried to. I thought for sure I was going to be Harold Baines, big leg kick. That's what I came up with, and that was my guy. That was my idol.
All right.
By the way, I got to clean that up. Hall of Famer, Harold Baines.
Yes, Hall of Famer, Harold Baines. I was a lefty first baseman. I'm a tall guy, so 6'5". I was a lefty first baseman. I couldn't hit for power, but I rarely struck out. My favorite players that I thought I played like Mark Grace of the Cubs and Will Clark of the San Francisco Giants. Will Clark obviously hit for more power. But I grew up in St. Louis, so my favorite player, to this day, still my favorite player, is Ozzie Smith. To watch a player dominate a game with his glove and then work on his bat to become a very important player offensively, stole bases, never struck out, slapped the ball, switch hitter. Ozzie Smith and that team in the 80s, it's why I fell in love with baseball. There was so much action. Vince Coleman got a walk. He was going to be at third base in 3 pitches. It was just awesome to watch guys showcase so much athleticism and Ozzie Smith making plays all over the field. So the wizard, Ozzie Smith, is my favorite player.
So one of the things that we talk to our students about is as writers, as journalists, right? When you have an opportunity to ask a question or get some information out there, you do. So I'm going to use this platform and say that my two players, when I was a kid, I was a third baseman. I was a Red Sox fan, but I worshipped Brooks Robinson. I absolutely adored Brooks Robinson. And I'm going to put this name out there because I feel like people don't say this name enough. Fred Lynn. I loved Fred Lynn as a kid. Speaking of somebody whose injury-plagued career sort of, I think, prevented people from recognizing kind of his full talent. If Fred Lynn had been able to stay healthy his whole career, I think people would have been able to appreciate kind of what kind of a ball player he was.
Oh, yeah.
So,
he captivated the nation as a rookie.
Yeah. I taught myself to throw left-handed because Fred Lynn was a left-handed hitter. So, Greg, I know that you're also a baseball card collector. Any special cards in your collection?
Yes, actually. I just brought up his name. I try to get as many San Diego Padre rookie Ozzie Smith cards as possible. Currently, I have 6 of those. I do have a rookie Cal Ripken Jr., which is a very nice card to have. I have 3 rookie Ricky Henderson cards. Just players of my era that I absolutely love. But since I started working at MLB Network, I did a documentary called Cardboard Treasures, and I did it for Topps. And I was able to work out a deal with them where I kind of got a set of cards all the time, like full sets of my lifetime, from 1979. So I have been collecting Mike Trout cards. I've got a whole binder of Mike Trout rookie cards, which are red hot right now. Bryce Harper rookie cards. I had a lot of Mike Stanton before he went to Giancarlo Stanton rookie cards. Guys that I just Clayton Kershaw rookie cards. So I'm a crazy collector. I've been doing it for a very long time. None of the really old stuff. I'm not into the Mantle and the Johnny Benches, at least not yet. but just the guys that I've enjoyed in my lifetime. Those are the guys I try to go out and get.
Any Cliff Floyd rookie cards in your collection?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Cliff Lloyd was like the #1 prospect in baseball. So yes, I've got plenty of Cliff Lloyd cards, man. All kinds of different images. There's one of him dunking a basketball. Do you remember this, Cliff? What was that
Of
from?
course. Man, we was in Charleston, like I don't know. We was in Charleston somewhere, man. Um, West Virginia. What? No, Charleston is where?
South
Uh,
Carolina.
North
South
Carolina.
Carolina. We was in Charleston. This guy comes up out of nowhere. Now, look, the dugouts and stuff. When you got off the bus, it wasn't luxury, right? You got off the bus, you walk. You walking around, and and this guy walks up. He goes, "Hey, doing this shoot across the street. Know you from Chicago. Know you hooped in high school. I know you love MJ. Absolutely. Michael Jordan. Like, absolutely. I'm like, why are you telling me Michael Jordan when you say MJ? You don't do that. You just say MJ, and I know who you're talking about." And he goes, "You think you can like take a baseball and like dunk it?" I'm like, absolutely. Like it's like no. I'm like, how you want me to do it? You want me to do it like the J's I'm wearing because I'm wearing the Jordans right now? Like, I can actually do exactly what Mike did back in the day. You want me to duplicate? I got you. So we
And
go
he
over
did
there, and
it.
it takes like, no lie, it takes like maybe four shots, and I'm like, boom. The first one I kind of missed. I was like, I don't like it. I knew I didn't like it. Second one was kind of like okay. The third one I was like, that's the money shot, but I'll do another one just in case. And the one you have, Greg, with the 19 like 85 van in the background and the old houses in the
Yes.
back. That that's me with the J's on, right? The J's on and the Space Jam Jordans, and boom, slamming that thing.
It's a
So it was
great card.
cool.
It's unbelievable.
He was like,
It's unbelievable.
yo, this is gonna be big one day. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever, bro. You ain't even gonna publish this thing. And sure enough, it got some love.
Oh yeah.
As you were saying earlier, it's about passion and engagement, right? You went for it,
Yeah,
and
you never
you did
know.
it.
And baseball cards back in the day, as Greg, as you know, were huge. There it is,
Yeah.
right?
I told you. It's my favorite Cliff Lloyd card.
There it is. I'm like, yo, that's money. And by the way, when you look at that Barney outfit I'm wearing, that was my best outfit in my suitcase. That was like
That's like minor league formal wear.
that was it. That was
Yeah.
it.
So, all right. So, to shift gears again a little bit to a little bit more serious question, um, I'm going to invite Colin on. Colin is working on a baseball history story, so he's got a question for Cliff about the era that you played in. So, Colin, you want to come on screen and ask your question of Cliff?
Hey, Colin.
Yeah. So my question is, so I'm doing a story right now about Barry Bonds in the steroid era, and I wanted to know like how was the pressure when playing in the steroid era? Like, did it feel different knowing that there were people around you probably taking PEDs and stuff like that?
Man, what a question. You know what? It just made me kind of right now sort of go all the way back and sort of feel a certain type of way about it, right? And I wouldn't say it was pressure. I would say it was more of just not being naive. Like, I knew for a fact guys were doing it, but I stayed in my lane. I understood, that I was my own responsibility, and to never judge anybody is what I was taught. And hopefully, um, you're taught that the same way. You don't judge anybody. You just take care of yourself and you keep it moving. And you can have an opinion. And wherever that opinion takes you, that's fine. So I look at the history, I look at the steroid era, and I don't really speak on it because I took care of me. And if you take care of yourself and play to the best of your ability, you live with that. And that's how I looked at it. As far as the history of the game, I think the game will always be tainted in a way that It's unfortunate because I hope you know what integrity is, and if you mess with that, I think you messing with something that's very special to me. So when I went out there and played the game in between the lines, the integrity of the game was very important to me. I wanted my peers and my fans and my people who love me to understand that I played the game the right way, hard, and it's, and that was the only way I tried to sort of leave, uh, you know, my, whatever um, touch or feel or legacy on the sport every single time I went out there on the field. And it's unfortunate that you have to ask that question because if it's something you're writing about, you're passionate about it, you want to really know. I would love for you to be having a different perspective on that time where I was a part of and played this game. So, whatever you do, right, I look forward to reading it to see how your perspective uh, is now perceived about the sport and how it's evolved into where you are today.
All right. Thanks for the question, Colin. Thanks for that answer, Cliff. And I don't know that we could have picked or scripted a better way to come to a conclusion than Cliff talking about integrity, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, that's a core value, right? Whatever we do, whether it's playing a game, whether it's broadcasting, whether it's being a journalist, like I think integrity is the most important characteristic that we can have as human beings. I think like nothing's more important than integrity. So, Cliff, I really appreciate your answer. So,
Thank you.
so I want to thank both Cliff and Greg for coming today, spending some time with us. I want to thank Franklin and Colin and Evan for their questions, and also the questions from the students in Kearney. We look forward to the rest of the baseball season. As a Red Sox fan, I'm hoping both of your predictions about the AL East come true. But as a Red Sox fan, I'm pessimistic naturally, so I'm not sure if I believe it. So four World Series has still not like bred the pessimism out of me as a lifelong Red Sox fan. Glass is always half empty, right? As a Red Sox fan, glass is always half empty. So, but I'm hoping I'm going to be wrong and you guys are going to be right. So enjoy the rest of the season. Thanks for taking the time, and we look forward to keeping up with your work about baseball. Take care and stay
No doubt.
safe.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me.
Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week for the 4th episode of the Summer Speaker Series. Take care. Stay safe.